plushie ignored them both, continuing to glare at Mount Augustus with its big blue eyes, its menacing aura replaced by sourness. Ryan reached a terrible conclusion. By defeating the plushie so thoroughly, lightning but had done the impossible, he had given it depression. Ryan then knocked on Shroud's door earlier than usual, offering a free stuffed ghoul as a gift. The psycho appeared torpid, leading Ryan to wonder if his immortality was failing. Without mentioning time travel, Ryan told the translucent vigilante almost everything else. They sat on opposing chairs for an hour inside Shroud's hideout, the vigilante silent as a tomb. By the time Ryan finished his tale, dawn was breaking over New Rome and cracks had formed in the windows. Matthias Martel uttered a single word, "Fuck!" Ryan confirmed his suspicions and added that the knockoffs likely contained carcinogens, though he could not prove it. Shroud joined his hands and asked if Ryan had hard proof that Bloodstream made the knockoffs, noting they had destroyed all their samples to prevent Bloodstream's return. Ryan replied that he did. Len had allowed him to take a drop of blood for study, which he offered to the vigilante, warning to keep a flamethrower nearby. Shroud said he would also need the vaccine data and examine the blood carefully, half expecting it to burst out of its container. He said if their genius confirmed Ryan's claims, they would have to come to New Rome in force. Ryan expressed his desire to avoid that, warning that Shroud would get more than just pigeon shit on his windshield if they did. Matthias's armor seemed to shift, threatening to grow spikes, but after a moment he removed his helmet, revealing his true face. He approached Ryan and gazed into his eyes with chilling seriousness. Matthias summarized the situation. Adam the Ogre, a man who had been cannibalizing people before gaining superpowers, was days away from obtaining an orbital superweapon, and Dynamis had infected thousands with the seeds of a global pandemic. Both disasters were possible because they had failed to address them properly. He asked Ryan how this was not a situation deserving their full attention. Ryan lied that he could select whichever universe he wanted and warned that the sun would set on New Rome if sunshine arrived, with lightning but ensuring countless innocents would die. Shroud responded skeptically. Ryan asked how many times Shroud's group had fought lightning, but Shroud clenched his fists and said too many times. Ryan reminded him that Mob Zeus was a heartless bastard who cared only for power and revenge, a bitter old man dying of cancer with little left to lose except his daughter. Shroud acknowledged that. Ryan asked if Mob Zeus would put aside his grievances against a greater threat or make things worse for Leo just to spite him. Shroud's silence answered the question. Ryan delivered the final point. Shroud had a plan for New Rome, but it did not account for Adam or Bloodstream. The plan had not survived contact with the enemy, so adaptation was necessary. Matthias asked which side Ryan served. Ryan placed a hand on his chest and said he served the realm and his own side. Matthias frowned and asked if Ryan was just trying to save his own hide. Ryan shrugged and reminded him of his immortality, saying he did not want the city to burn or the world to end, and that he had friends on both sides he wanted to see happy. He asked if that was not what Shroud wanted too. Shroud said he wanted to save lives permanently and explained that they had tried to deal with Bloodstream before, only for Dynamis to lie and exploit him for profit. They had killed Mecron, but his weapons remained available to worse villains. He did not want to repeat the past in 5 years. Ryan examined Shroud and noted that he had known something like this would happen with Bloodstream, a conclusion drawn from their brief interactions the previous loop. Shroud nodded and revealed that his mother, Alice Martel, once called Pythia, had provided a detailed report of future threats before nearly dying fighting Mecron. She was recovering in Denmark with his father. Ryan asked if she was rising from the dead. Shroud replied that Nidhogg and his men had not progressed that far yet. He explained that Alice had ranked Augustus high on the threat list, but Bloodstream topped it, expected to cause an extinction event if Ryan's sister died. Ryan understood why the carnival pursued Bloodstream so relentlessly, but lamented that all they did was delay the disaster and allow Dynamis to worsen it. He shuddered, remembering Len being absorbed into the eldritch horror. The prophecy had come true, but seers did not decide the march of time. Ryan did. He said the disaster would still happen unless they acted, but they could still change the future and end the nightmare if they cooperated. Matthias asked skeptically how, noting they were not powerful enough to destroy the bunker without Leo, Mr. Wave, and others, and that Dynamis was corrupt, so Il Miglior's help was unreliable. Ryan said there were other heroes in Rome and offered to recruit a crack team of rogues and misfits, suggesting Matthias might even find love among them. Shroud did not trust Ryan much and said that even if they prevailed on their own, saving lives was not enough. Justice must be served. Augustus could not keep poisoning people or exploiting the Costa's daughter and could not get away with his crimes, nor could the Manadas. Ryan agreed and said the Augusti could be left to him while Shroud took care of the Bloodstream vaccine. He promised to destroy the Bliss factory and return Julie Costa's daughter, admitting blowing up stuff was his passion. Shroud warned that Leo and the others could not be expected to wait things out. Ryan revealed there were other Mecran bases and that the bunker below the junkyard was one of many. He had recorded their locations and said Sunshine could hunt them down while they dealt with New Rome. With Mecran's legacy wiped out, they could finally exorcise his ghost for good. Ryan hoped the Mecran base could also cause the behemoth to self-detonate, preventing anyone else from using the orbital laser. Shroud asked about the Manadas, noting Hector was mad, Fallout Matter, and Blackthorn had lied to them. Though his fashion sense suggested otherwise, Ryan believed the gardener was the cleanest among them. He recalled Enrique complaining to his brother about being lied to at the end of the previous restart, and Jasmine telling the courier that the manager was supposed to oversee knockoff elixirs production until he visited Lab 66 and left in disgust, likely discovering his family's dirty secret then. Adam Smasher remained too fanatical to back down, and his father too corrupt. Blackthorn, however, had his heart in the right place, contrary to Ryan's initial suspicion of him as a closet supervillain. Enrique was Livia's counterpart in Dynamis, a well-meaning man trying to reform his organization from within but too bound by familial love to take a hard stance. Both needed to inherit for New Rome to know peace. Ryan knew removing Hector Manada would be easy by revealing his corruption and alliance with Hanifat Lecter, but Fallout would not relinquish power without a fight. Ryan proposed working with Green Hand to clean up the skeletons in his company's closet, believing a part of him wanted to act but was unsure how. He suggested approaching Green Hand with hard data about the dangers his company's miracle drug posed, hoping it might cause him to change sides. Shroud agreed to inform Leo and Stitch about the plan but could not guarantee anything. He confirmed Psyshock would attack Rusttown's orphanage on May 10th, and Ryan assured they would counterattack immediately afterward. Shroud explained the carnival's effectiveness stemmed from his mother's efforts. After she fell ill, he tried to pick up the slack but lacked the ability to see the future, a skill Ryan possessed, which Shroud admitted seemed almost unfair. Ryan claimed he had earned that knowledge. Matthias studied Ryan carefully, eyes drifting to the courier's mask and hat as if trying to figure something out. After a long silence, he asked how far Ryan could go back in time. Ryan, grateful for the mask shielding his face, asked for clarification. Matthias suggested Ryan's knowledge exceeded mere visions of alternate timelines, noting that even his powerful mother would struggle to provide all the secrets Ryan seemed to know. He guessed Ryan was not just freezing time but controlling it, a chronokinetic. Ryan considered denying the truth but instead remained silent, weighing his next words. For centuries, the courier had kept his abilities secret, his experiences teaching him caution that had sometimes turned into paranoia. Trust was difficult, but he had learned to open his heart through relationships with Jasmine, Livia, Bianca, and even Alchemo. Though he had killed Matthias several times before they became acquainted, Ryan respected the vigilante, who reminded him of Felix, a young man determined to make things right. Perhaps Ryan shared so much because he subconsciously trusted Matthias already. Taking a leap of faith, Ryan asked what if he had fallen for Matthias. Matthias assumed Ryan could not travel very far and explained their focus on Augustus. They had eliminated many threats but could never defeat Augustus, who would soon attack Dynamis and attempt to take over Europe by force, seeking total victory at great cost. Ryan recalled New Rome burning, torn apart by the Augusti and the Il Migli or Dynamis alliance, accelerated by Sunshine's presence. Augustus, confronted with his inevitable death by cancer, would attempt to ensure Livia's uncontested rule by destroying Dynamis, the carnival, and anyone in his path, possibly going out in a blaze of glory. Matthias admitted they could not defeat Augustus directly but planned to cripple his organization, cutting off soldiers and drugs fueling his war chest, and asked if that would stop him. Ryan hesitated, knowing his previous efforts had hurt himself more than Augustus. Sunshine could bring down Mecran but not Augustus, the most powerful creature on Earth short of the ultimate ones. He had no permanent solution yet, only hope. Ryan said he might have a way to put Augustus down for good. Shroud echoed May dejectedly. Ryan admitted needing more time and swore he would not let Augustus win, no matter the cost. Though it did not reassure Matthias, it broke him out of despair. He asked if the extinction event and Adam taking over the behemoth had happened before. Ryan nodded slowly. Matthias lowered his head, trembling with anger at Dynamis, the Meta, gang, and himself. Ryan confessed he could not solve this alone and asked if Matthias was in. Matthias snickered with determination and affirmed his commitment. Thus, Ryan recruited another Avenger to his cause. Only one remained, an independent hero unaffiliated with Dynamis, half-man, half-beast, unmatched in power and purity of heart. Ryan dialed a number on his cell phone as he exited Shroud's shack, the sound of waves crashing on the shore nearby. Someone answered before he could return to his Plymouth Fury. A voice said, "Yes." Ryan replied, "Timmy?" as he opened the door, with Henriette yapping from the back seat, Eugene, Henry napping, and the plushie sulking. Ryan explained that the plushie's name was Panda and that the boy must have waited by his phone for hours, hoping for a call. He added that the panda could do anything, even save cats stuck in trees. Ryan smiled behind his mask and asked if the plushie had considered joining a traveling circus. It was May 10th, and Saishak was about to attack the orphanage. A rabbit had hanged itself in the kitchen, which had terrified little Sarah. Ryan muttered to himself that using a rope rather than warm intestines was unusual for the world destroyer, but the sight had still scared the child. The plushie played dead. Ryan noticed the walls covered in gunshot holes and an empty Beretta on the kitchen table, alongside knives, lens antidepressants, and alcohol. Little Sarah had come to Ryan crying after finding the rabbit. Another child had discovered the plushie in the shower room with a bucket of water, a bloody pentagram, and a jumper cable, though fortunately, it hadn't stolen anything from Ryan's car. The courier found the plushie's behavior creepier than usual. Ryan carefully asked what the plushie was trying to achieve, uncertain how its pattern would develop. The beast no longer reproduced in the presence of children but seemed indifferent to them, which worried Ryan. An orphan entered the kitchen, saw Ryan talking to the hanged rabbit, then glanced at the plushie with a blank expression. Ryan told the child that it made sense in context, and the child walked away silently. Ryan looked back at the plushie's big blue eyes, recalling what his elixir had told him when he briefly entered the black world. The plushie didn't understand death, so it killed others to figure it out, or perhaps because it found it funny. Its failure to kill lightning but had forced it to reconsider, deciding to understand death by experiencing it. The plushie was having a suicidal phase. Ryan wondered how long it would last, remembering his own long suicidal phase involving plane crashes, a yacht, lasers, sharks, piranhas, giraffes, drug-fueled orgies, and a meteorite. His hand instinctively moved to the pocket where he kept his A-bomb, and he sighed in relief upon finding it safely there. The plushie's ears perked up in interest. Ryan warned the plushie not to touch the bomb, shielding it protectively, but the plushie turned its head to look at him and glanced at his pocket. Ultimately, Ryan left the plushie hanging from the ceiling and wisely slipped out of the kitchen, feeling the creature's dreadful gaze on his back even after exiting the room. He wished he could pull the off switch, realizing the terrible monster had been pretending it worked all along, crushing his hope of containing it. He thought of all the times he had put the plushie on a shelf, thinking himself safe, even when he and Jasmine, oh gods, it had been watching all along. Ryan exited the orphanage through the front door, filled with dread and horror at this terrible realization. Len awaited him outside in full power armor and said she had something for him. She tossed him a handheld version of her water rifle, which Ryan accepted. The Meta gang's minibus had arrived in the courtyard. This time, Ryan did not shoot at the minibus on sight but waited for its passengers to step out. Mongrel, more beast than man, Mosquito, anemic without the special blood juice Ryan had provided in the last loop, and Saishak, whose presence infuriated Ryan. Ryan greeted the Meta gang members sarcastically, while Len's fingers tensed on her rifle's trigger. He told Saishak that the kids were underage and too old for him. Saishak responded by mocking Ryan and recognizing Len's work, asking if Ryan's father was joining them from beyond the grave. Len remained silent, and Ryan flinched at the familiar taunt, realizing Saishak did not remember the previous loop, but Big Fat Adam was alive again. Ryan preferred both gone but could now predict their behavior. Ryan raised his water rifle and warned Saishak that the place was invitation only and threatened to show him the door face first if he took another step. Saishak's tone turned vicious, but before he could finish, Ryan activated his power, shot Mosquito and Mongrel with the water rifle in frozen time, tossed the weapon aside, and grabbed a bliss inhaler hidden beneath his trench coat. Ryan applied the inhaler to Saishak's face, pumping his brain full of drugs. From Saishak's perspective, Ryan appeared to teleport in front of him. Giant water bubbles trapped his allies, quickly drowning them into unconsciousness. Tentacles wriggled free from Saishak's clothes, revealing his monstrous form, but the drug acted faster. Saishak's limbs thrashed wildly before he collapsed, limp and drooling liquid from his inhuman skull. The entire conflict lasted half a minute. Ryan said he preferred fights to be fun and relaxing but called Saishak an exception before kicking the helpless telepath, declaring he had overstayed his welcome. He was saving himself for wardrobe anyway. A new voice remarked that Ryan had rehearsed, and Shroud appeared at his side. Ryan asked if Shroud had modified the oxygen supply as requested, pointing at Mosquito struggling in the water prison. Len confirmed she had, assuring Mosquito wouldn't suffer brain damage this time. The next member of Quicksave's Avengers arrived on a fearsome bicycle, honking to intimidate foes. The monster of the East had come to lay waste to psychos and evildoers, ready to bathe his fur in their blood. Timmy abruptly stopped his vehicle near the Meta gang's minibus, declaring that the panda would save the day. Ryan told him he was a bit bit late for that round but early for the main course. Timmy asked if they would eat before defeating bad guys, and Ryan raised a fist to the heavens, declaring they would eat villains' dreams and drink their tears. Timmy acknowledged this enthusiastically. Shroud asked skeptically what the panda could do. Ryan boasted that the panda could transform into the most powerful creature on Earth and thought he would be a good addition to the traveling circus. The panda nodded sheepishly, admitting he had little work experience but would be honored to serve with the carnival. Shroud shrugged, replying that it was not skills but heart that made a hero, and while skills could be learned through time and effort, heart could not. Ryan had expected the Siliconetic to look down on the panda as Enrique did, but was pleasantly surprised. The carnival's high turnover rate meant they couldn't afford to turn down volunteers. The panda, invigorated by the thought of joining this illustrious group of heroes, was ready to prove his worth. Len asked Ryan how many more were expected. Ryan replied 2 more. He had considered bringing Adam Kitty, but putting him, his sister, and Livia on the same team was bound to backfire. Felix was too scornful of his family to stand them. Ryan added that after the team assembled, they would conduct a drug bust and haul everyone caught to jail. Shroud glanced at the captured gang members and said there was no need to keep them prisoner, as they were psychos and murderers and nobody would blame them for putting them down. The panda's enthusiasm waned at the mention of putting them down. Ryan reassured the panda that they would bring them in by the book. Shroud asked sarcastically how they intended to imprison psychos, noting that Saren and Frank the Mad would destroy any jail they were put into. Ryan said he could turn around those 2 and had a solution for the rest, an underwater prison located 20 leagues beneath the sea. Mr. Looking Glass immediately caught on and glanced at Shorty, asking if it was the underwater base. Len nodded, explaining that she had cut off some habitats from her sanctuary, which were self-sustaining but isolated like an underwater asylum. Ryan added that unless the prisoners could turn into fish, they wouldn't swim far before pressure crushed them, and that they could try to rehabilitate people before imprisoning them. Shroud deadpanned about Adam the Ogre, and Ryan replied that Walleye would be extradited to Monaco, hoping the staff there would deal with him appropriately. Shroud doubted psychos could be cured unless Ryan could perform a miracle. Len admitted uncertainty but insisted imprisonment was always better than killing. Suddenly, Shroud turned invisible, surprising the panda, as the sound of a new car echoed nearby. Livia's group arrived in a platinum version of Pluto's Lamborghini driven by Cancel. Livia and Fortuna sat in the back. Livia wore her Queen Crimson costume without the helmet but with a new white cat-themed necktie, while Fortuna wore a tight white latex catsuit that accentuated her form and complemented her golden hair. The sight of 2 genomes in fashionable costumes restored Ryan's faith in humanity. The courier greeted Livia and Fortuna warmly as they exited the car and waved at Cancel, who responded cheerfully and asked whom she should kill today. Livia nodded at the unconscious Psyshock, indicating him, then greeted everyone else, including Ryan, Len, and the panda. Len was uncertain how to respond, likely mistrusting Livia beneath her power armor helmet. Shroud's continued invisibility suggested he had learned of Cancel's range and stayed out of sight. Timmy hyperventilated at people recognizing him. Fortuna admitted she knew the panda only through Livia but confessed her fondness for pandas, recalling a stuffed doll she had as a child. The panda replied that he was very cuddly in his natural form, with soft, perfumed fur. Cancel complained that Psyshock was drugged out and preferred when victims saw what was coming. The panda gulped, realizing she meant death. Greta explained that people were only genuine when they died and that killing meanies built a real human connection, suggesting the panda should try it sometime. Ryan noticed the Lamborghini's windows cracking subtly at the edges. He told the panda that Psyshock could brainwash and take over others' bodies, and that getting rid of him was the only way to save his victims, emphasizing that sometimes a hero must get his hands dirty. Though non-lethal cures for Psyshock's thralls might exist, Ryan was unconcerned. Psyshock and his boss were the strongest arguments for the death penalty he had ever seen and would receive no mercy. Livia ordered Cancel to wait for her signal to execute Psyshock, promising to deal with the rest shortly. Cancel agreed and asked if more backup was needed, warning the neighborhood was unsafe. Livia smiled and said Fortuna would take care of her, as would Ryan. Ryan lamented leaving his armor in storage, and Livia suggested recovering it. Cancel pulled Psyshock's body into the Lamborghini and drove away, but not before Livia picked up her helmet from the car's chest. After Cancel left, Livia turned to an empty spot and said she could see someone. Shroud dropped his invisibility, surprising Fortuna, and directed his anger at Ryan, questioning why they should cooperate with his daughter. Livia replied coldly that her father knew nothing about the plan and would not be involved. Shroud stated he did not appreciate dealing with the heir of a drug-running empire. Livia retorted that she did not appreciate him dating her best friend and lying to her, but they all had to make compromises compromises for the greater good. Fortuna scowled, asking if Livia liked someone more than her. Shroud seemed to suppress the urge to adjust his helmet, while Livia reassured Fortuna by warmly taking her hand and saying she was more than a friend, almost a sister. Fortuna angrily said they would have been sisters if Felix had not treated Livia poorly, vowing to clout her brother next time she saw him. Shroud crossed his arms and asked why Livia would cooperate with them. She answered to protect the city from destruction. The panda asked uneasily what destruction. Fortuna asked Livia what the mission was, admitting she had not told anyone else, not even Narcinia, but wanted to know. Shroud looked at Fortuna with scorn, surprised she had come without knowing why. Fortuna confidently said that as Livia's dearest friend, she would help without questions. Shroud fell silent and seemed to regard Fortuna with new respect. Ryan wondered if Shroud was beginning to see Fortuna's good qualities, just as he had in a previous loop, and thought that if only she were less vain, he might have dated her seriously. Livia explained that the Meta gang had found a cache of Mecran weapons and intended to use them to destroy New Rome, and they had to stop them. For a moment, neither Fortuna nor the panda seemed to understand. The panda looked at Ryan for confirmation, while Fortuna glanced at Livia as if she were joking. Fortuna asked if Livia was joking, noting that it was May and April was long gone. Livia insisted to Fortuna that she was not joking about the Meta gang finding Mecran weapons and planning to destroy New Rome. Fortuna blinked several times before panicking and asking why only the two of them were involved and suggesting they should inform Livia's father. Shroud objected, questioning if that would just give her father access to Mecran's weapons. Fortuna argued it was better than letting psychos have them, claiming she had heard they ate people. Livia calmly explained that she had seen the future and the technology would cause harm regardless of who possessed it. It had to be destroyed, and if anyone else knew, it would end up in the wrong hands. Fortuna hesitated but asked if Livia was sure. Livia nodded gravely, prompting Shroud to clarify that this was a temporary alliance to deal with the Mecran base's threat, agreeing to destroy it together before returning to normal business. The Augusti princess confirmed this and added that afterward they would discuss Ryan's original mission to New Rome and seek a diplomatic solution. Ryan remained silent, hoping Fortuna and Livia could cooperate on their own, knowing that despite his ruthlessness, Looking Glass preferred avoiding total war. He emphasized that everything depended on the success of this mission. Fortuna accepted the plan, boasting that her power would guide them to victory. Ryan glanced at Len and the panda, who had remained quiet, and asked if they were ready to clean up the trash. The panda, instead of being overwhelmed, declared this was what he had trained for all his life, the moment of truth. Len mentioned that the Meta gang had tried to take the children, insisting they had to be stopped before they returned. Fortuna glanced at the orphanage nearby, noticing children looking through the windows, and mistakenly thought it was a dog shelter. Shroud corrected her, adding that it was both an orphanage and a shelter, joking that Fortuna could donate her next lottery winnings to those in need. Fortuna enthusiastically agreed, surprising the translucent vigilante. She then asked if they had met before, noting Shroud's familiar voice. Shroud's tone deepened, denying the possibility. Livia changed the subject, smiling at Ryan and asking if he preferred her new necktie. Ryan complimented her and then teased Fortuna for her lack of a mask. Fortuna defended her fashion choice, donning a golden domino mask and declaring it would be cruel to deny their enemies the ecstasy of her beauty. Ryan deadpanned that their foes would probably go blind from the horror, prompting Shroud to chuckle. Fortuna, pretending to be offended, said Ryan should be glad she was taken, otherwise, she would have made him invite her to dinner to apologize. Ryan grinned behind his mask and asked if she was really taken. Fortuna boasted she had found the perfect gentleman. Shroud looked uncomfortable, so Ryan teased Fortuna by asking for a photo of the victim. Fortuna showed a picture of a sour Matthias Martel on her cell phone, describing him as the cutest. Ryan remarked that Matthias was a very transparent person, visible on his face. Livia giggled, adding that his eyes were a window into his soul, while Shroud tried to ignore them. The panda, unaware of the nuances, commented that Matthias did not look happy. Fortuna explained that Matthias didn't understand they were meant to be together, but that fate would bring them together. Ryan considered pitying Matthias, but thought it better than the courier's fate. If the time traveler had interfered earlier, the golden retriever would have targeted him instead. Shroud complained that time was running out, and Len nodded in agreement. Livia explained she had timed everything based on Ryan's information. Once Greta killed Psyshock, the Meta gang would go on high alert. The attack on the junkyard had to coincide with that moment to prevent Adam the Ogre from preparing and to maximize confusion among his ranks. Shroud asked Ryan if Livia had made the plan, clearly upset. Ryan shrugged and said they had, noting that if they wanted a seer, they had one. Looking Glass's dislike was evident, but he had committed to the plan and swallowed his pride. He stated they would destroy destroy the gang's base afterward to prevent their technology from falling into the wrong hands. Livia confirmed the plan, explaining Len would attack from the water access while they distracted from the front. She promised to debrief them en route to the junkyard. Ryan asked how far ahead Livia had planned. She replied that she had planned until they moved inside. Afterward, things became more difficult since she still couldn't see him. She challenged him to surprise her, and he responded affirmatively. Fortuna smirked and promised none of the mutants would get near Livia. Ryan had long considered how to break into Mecran's mainframe, realizing it would require countless loops and memorization or an army suffering heavy casualties. Instead, he chose a third option, bringing in a living cheat code. Based on what he knew of elixirs, he assumed Lucky Girl's power functioned as a guardian angel, influencing events around her to make her happier. Perhaps it was designed to make Shroud the perfect match for Fortuna, or to make the vigilante fall in love with her to keep her off the carnival's radar. Ryan wondered how far yellow elixirs could see into time. Fortuna's power had limits since Ryan and other yellow genomes could counter it, but it was powerful. The only true obstacle among the meta for Fortuna was the land, the Terrakinetic who had slain Lucky Girl once before. Ryan was not eager to see that happen again, but Livia seemed to have a plan to deal with her. After this exchange, the group separated. Len dragged the captive mosquito and mongrel inside the orphanage to place them in an automated bathysphere before moving on to Mecran's bunker. Ryan, the panda, Livia, and Fortuna boarded the Plymouth Fury while Shroud flew above them. The courier smashed the accelerator, ready to bring the fight to the meta gang, but the car refused to move. After several fruitless attempts, Ryan turned to glare at Fortuna. She protested, asking why he was looking at her like that and teasing that it was not her fault if he was too poor to buy a Ferrari. Ryan threatened her, saying he didn't insult his car lightly and had destroyed cities for less. Livia and the panda asked if that was true, the former more curious than surprised. Ryan replied that if they had to ask, they didn't know him well enough, then looked out the window at Shroud. The vigilante froze midair and refused to get in the back of the car, telling them to find another vehicle. Ryan gave him a stern look until Shroud gave in. In the back seat, Fortuna sat happily in the middle, flanked by an angry Shroud on one side and an amused Livia on the other. At the front, a determined panda sat beside Ryan as he started the car. This time, the Plymouth Fury roared to life again, prompting Livia to chuckle. Ryan drove the Fury through dilapidated streets while Livia explained the plan from the back. Ryan wore his bowler hat like a crown of pain and destruction. Livia checked her phone and said that when Psyshock died, the bunker would go on high alert. Cancel was waiting on the other end of the line to execute the metal squid. According to Ryan, Adam the Ogre had explicitly ordered the land to close the bunker's entrance if intruders got too close, leaving only a short time window to either take down the land or reach the base's entrance before it closed. Shroud asked how long they had, disguising his voice by making it rougher. Livia replied it was only minutes. Shroud then asked how they could prevent the land from noticing their approach, noting her range extended for miles. Ryan replied that Ghoul was like Lego toys, coming in many parts, and opened the glove box to reveal a skeletal foot wriggling inside. Shroud noted from the back seat where the rest of Ghoul had gone. The panda, disturbed, asked what it was. Ryan explained it was like a rabbit's foot, bringing luck, though less than the living charm sitting in the rearview mirror. Fortuna smugly claimed superiority while calling the foot disgusting. Ryan froze time and tossed the severed foot onto Fortuna's lap, causing her to scream when time resumed. She instinctively grabbed Shroud, confusing him as he seemed torn between reassuring her and annoyance. Ryan mocked Fortuna, saying he had a hand in the trunk if she preferred it. Fortuna complained and threw the foot at Ryan, who froze time again to catch it. She threatened to slap him in the face. Ryan explained that as long as they had Psyshock's body parts in the car, the landowner wouldn't pay attention to them, thinking Psyshock had picked up Ghoul and they were returning home, at least until they crashed through the front door. Livia nodded and outlined the defense. The reptilian, acid rain, Gemini, and the thralls would protect the junkyard surface while the rest of the gang stayed on standby inside the base. Psyshock's execution would free his victims, the reptilian wouldn't be a problem, and Livia could handle acid rain. Ryan blinked in surprise when Livia said she could handle acid rain. Though he couldn't see her face behind the helmet, he was sure she grinned. She explained she could see where acid rain teleported before the action. The life of a genome was a complex game of rock, paper, scissors with some like lightning but cheating the system. Livia added that Gemini and the land had no hard counters. As they neared the junkyard's walls of car piles and trash, she asked Fortuna and Shroud if they could take care of those too. Fortuna agreed but frowned, saying she should get a pseudonym too. She had considered Diana but rejected it after Felix ran off. Shroud advised choosing a name fitting herself, not others' desires. Fortuna said she wanted one her boyfriend would like since promised they'd spend their lives together, promising to harass him with suggestions until he agreed. Ryan noticed the boyfriend resisting the urge to facepalm, especially as the panda offered suggestions like Lady Luck and The Legend. Ryan joked about almost invincible, which Fortuna arrogantly claimed, insisting nobody could hurt her because she was the world's luckiest woman. Ryan recalled the blonde model bleeding after Pluto shot her and warned Fortuna to stay away from the land, another yellow, or her luck would run out. Fortuna insisted it couldn't happen, but Livia shocked her by explaining the land was a yellow/orange psycho with conceptual dominion over an area, trumping Fortuna's luck. Ryan, drawing from his brief presidential term, explained that the land could telekinetically manipulate Earth but with limited precision at range. While near the Earth's soil, she was nearly impossible to destroy but could only create quakes, making her Fortuna's natural counter. Ryan told Fortuna her power was like a guardian angel with esoteric rules, nonsensical but internally logical. Fortuna didn't understand, but Shroud explained her power altered probability and events to protect her, while the land had supreme spiritual control over an area, giving her higher authority in her territory. Fortuna shyly asked if the land could harm her. Livia reassured her she would live if her partner protected her during the battle. The land would need to take back physical form to use full telekinesis, giving Fortuna an opening. Shroud affirmed their alliance, promising not to betray Fortuna mid-fight if she had his back. Fortuna regained bravery, warning she would haunt him if she died. Ryan wondered how the land and Geist's abilities would interact, considering the possibility of exorcism, since Geist's power anchored him to an area. If they could take out the land, the meta gang would lack anyone capable of defeating Lucky Girl, whose luck made the battle nearly won. Gemini and Ink Machine would be hardest to contain due to abnormal physiology, followed by Frank. Ryan planned to handle Frank and hoped Fortuna and Shroud could manage the others. He had also informed the panda of his power's regeneration to help in the upcoming fight. The battle was imminent as the Plymouth Fury reached the junkyard's entrance fence, where the reptilian and Gemini stood watch, the lizard boy squinting as the car approached. Ryan hoped for resistance but was disappointed when none came. He called out Lucky Girl while tossing Len's water rifle at Fortuna, instructing her to aim for the eyes. Livia encouraged Fortuna, who opened the windows with a grin. The reptilian panicked and ordered them to stop, but Ryan accelerated instead. Fortuna fired the water rifle at the psychos as the Plymouth Fury passed, not bothering to aim precisely, yet the shots trapped the reptilian in a sphere of water. The water phased through Gemini, who vanished as the car approached, her monstrous shadow chasing after the vehicle but failing to catch up. Ryan navigated the junkyard's maze of trash walls and twisted turns, recalling the reflexes from his first suicide run and sensing deja vu. Livia urged to sound the alarm, but no bell rang. Cancel must have executed Psyshock immediately, freeing the thralls and sowing confusion. They reached the bunker's entrance unchallenged until Acid Rain appeared, guarding the tunnel beneath the junkyard and summoning toxic clouds above her hands. Acid Rain shouted at the Plymouth Fury, calling them thieves and drawing two knives with a furious expression. Fortuna fired the water rifle at her, but the land finally noticed the intrusion as the junkyard trembled from an earthquake, trash and car walls collapsing. A golden halo surrounded Fortuna and her bubble projectile, which flickered as Acid Rain dodged the attack. The land's invisible pressure overwhelmed Ryan's crew, feeling like a wolf pack stalking them. Ryan stopped the car near the bunker entrance and shouted for everyone to go. The panda opened his door and transformed quickly. Livia stepped out calmly, and Shroud tried to open his car door to join the fight but found it locked. He grumbled at Fortuna as he carried her through the opposite door like a bride. Acid Rain's toxic raindrops fell, while the land caused a nearby trash wall to collapse near the Plymouth Fury. Ryan, Livia, and the panda moved away swiftly, while Shroud flew carrying Fortuna above the ground. Acid Rain's raindrops fell where Shroud wasn't, but the Plymouth Fury was not so lucky. Ryan screamed in horror as piles of trash buried his car, blaming Acid Rain for destroying it. Livia demanded the water rifle from Fortuna, who tossed it to her. As Livia caught it, Acid Rain teleported behind her with knives raised. The panda attempted to attack Acid Rain but was too slow. Ryan intervened, apologizing to Helen as he donned the Fisty Brothers and activated his time. Stop. Acid Rain's eyes widened at her real name, but she teleported out of range before the freeze took effect. Ryan grabbed the paralyzed Livia to protect her from another flank. Acid Rain reappeared and lunged at Ryan's throat with her knives, snarling threats. Time skipped forward. When Ryan regained consciousness, Acid Rain's knife was embedded in the transformed panda's arm, cutting deep but not slowing the massive creature. Livia fired the water rifle from behind Acid Rain, enveloping her in a water sphere that followed her as she teleported onto a junk hill. Acid Rain held her breath as the bubble rolled down the trash pile. Ryan's bowler hat was already damaged by acid raindrops, with Livia's suit slightly harmed as well. Livia explained that Acid Rain's blade had phased through Ryan during the time skip and that her power allowed her to predict Acid Rain's actions, waiting for her reappearance. The land continued trying to bury Ryan's group beneath debris but failed. Ryan noticed Gemini's shadow moving toward the junkyard's center. Fortuna expressed her feelings to Shroud, teasing him about falling for her at first sight. Shroud responded with sarcasm and gathered glass shards to throw at Gemini, while Fortuna dismissed his sarcasm, claiming she was loyal and not the type to cheat. Shroud deadpanned a reply before entering the tunnel with the transformed panda following. Ryan hoped they could handle the land and Gemini, while Livia, confident from her visions, led them to the bunker's blast door as the earth walls threatened to collapse. A pack of Dynami's dog drones ambushed them. The panda shouted spring roll attack and charged ahead, flattening one robot. Two others tried to flank Livia with iron jaws. Ryan handed Livia his coil gun, and she shot one drone's head off, likely aided by her power. When another drone nearly bit Livia's neck, Ryan froze time and punched it with Fisty, sending it crashing into a wall as time resumed. Their individual powers were strong, but their combined synergy made the raid easy. Ryan joked about taking over the world together. Livia asked which part of America each would claim, suggesting she take the South and he the North. Ryan flirted mid-battle, proposing marriage and sharing everything. To his surprise, Livia teased Ryan back, saying he could conquer France for their honeymoon. The panda, who had crushed the remaining drones while shouting his attacks' names, looked at them in horror and asked if Ryan was considering turning to the dark side. Ryan reassured him it was purely hypothetical as the trio crossed the blast door, which collapsed behind them, sealing the bunker's entrance. Livia left her sentence hanging, implying they might try in another loop, and Ryan immediately caught on. Though he had worried that bringing more people through loops would limit his options, having a time-traveling ally opened many possibilities. He suggested taking some holiday time after finishing their work, proposing to show Livia places beyond imagination. She agreed warmly, and they discussed finding a team name. Ryan suggested Crimson World, but Livia corrected him, giggling that two violets do not make red, then proposed Lady and Knight. Ryan countered with Crimson Queen and Purple World. The panda, unable to suppress his curiosity, asked if they were together, commenting on how cute they looked. Ryan joked they were not yet, then glanced at the reinforced windows along the corridor. The area outside had fallen into chaos, with Psyshock's thralls unconscious after their brainwasher's death. Shorty had risen from the bunker's C-access in full power armor and surprised the psychos. Ryan spotted familiar faces like Pale Guy and Fuckface trapped in water spheres, but Shorty struggled against Rakshasa and Ink Machine. Rakshasa summoned gremlins faster than Shorty could trap them, while Ink Machine harassed her in close combat, stretching liquid limbs into axes. Livia's tone shifted to serious as she told Ryan that Shorty could handle them only if they took down Adam and Frank quickly, or else there would be casualties. Ryan nodded, knowing this loop was a test run for the final bunker raid, but determined to prevent innocent deaths if possible. His thoughts drifted to life after New Rome. He had come expecting to either return to Wandering Earth if he couldn't find Shorty or settle down with her if he did. Though he and Len had reconciled, their relationship remained familial rather than romantic. Ryan wondered if he would stay with Len and the orphans after solving the crisis or seek new adventures. He had once found a partner in Jasmine, but she was gone. For the first time in a long while, Ryan pondered his future, sensing Livia might hold the key to figuring it out. But those questions could wait. The trio rushed into the recreational area, finding the atrium deserted. The Street Fighter's arcade game and bar were intact, and no psychos blocked their path. Perhaps Shorty had already dealt with the main defenders, or some had perished trying to access the bunker. Their moment of respite ended when the elevator doors opened, and a colossal figure with carbon skin entered the atrium. Big Fat Adam appeared, accompanied by Saren and Frank, carrying a strange coiled cannon likely salvaged from Mekran's armory. He apologized, stating that was not an exit. Ryan replied with a taunt, Livia taking position at his side, while the panda let out a fearsome roar. Hanifat Lecter had nowhere to run this time. Ryan moved to deliver the killing blow, producing a fake CIA badge from his trench coat and demanding Adam's arrest, claiming the Senate had impeached him. Adam interrupted, pressing his cannon's trigger and firing a black sphere that forced the group to scatter. Ryan instinctively dove toward the Street Fighter's arcade game to protect it, while Livia and the panda moved to the other side. The projectile moved slowly but shredded the bunker's metal walls like paper, absorbing everything in its path like a tiny black hole. Ryan briefly mistook it for a black flux weapon but realized it was a gravity gun, possibly related to Dynami's secret weapon against Augustus. Saren followed Adam's lead, unleashing a shockwave at Livia, who anticipated the attack and stepped aside. Saren roared and charged rushed at big fat Adam with claws extended. Ryan waved his badge at Frank, accusing Adam of disrespecting the democratic process. To his surprise, Adam played along, telling Frank that the CIA was taking over and trying to kill him as they had Kennedy, claiming the vice president was slain and senators would be next. Frank swore to protect the White House, raising his fists to the ceiling. Adam urged Frank to protect democracy, warning that failure meant all was lost. Frank roared, grabbed the bar counter, and threw it at Adam, who could not dodge. The heavy projectile exploded on contact, stopping the 700-kilogram bear dead in his tracks, allowing Frank to bull rush him. The atrium shook with every step of the Iron Giant. Adam had anticipated someone might use Frank's delusion against him and prepared accordingly. Ryan confessed to Adam that he was one of the most dangerous foes he had fought, praising his cunning and depravity, despite Augustus being more powerful. Adam responded that a man knows what he wants and gets it, raising his gravity cannon at Ryan and declaring his intent to make him squirm. Ryan stopped time, freezing the projectile midair. He rushed at Adam, tossing aside the fake CIA badge and punching the cannibal in the stomach. Though Ryan expected to inflict some damage, Adam's carbon skin was less resistant than Lightning Butt's body, and the punch tore through him like butter. Adam did not flinch. If anything, the blow seemed to damage Fisty's pistons more than Adam himself. Ryan wondered why his power hadn't worked. Had his encounter with Lightning Butt been a fluke? Had he only managed to hurt Augustus because the plushie had softened him up first? Unless he needed to focus his powers first, the courier could only produce visible black flux particles while wearing the power armor, after all. He muttered to himself that he needed the Saturn armor to use that power just before time resumed. Hannafat Lecter's projectile demolished the Street Fighter's arcade game, much to the courier's dismay. Big Fat Adam wielded his gravity cannon with one hand and tried to smash Ryan with his other fist. Before he could do much, a coil gun shot him in the left eye, blowing it up in a brief shower of blood. He screamed in pain. Ryan leapt back to safety and glanced at his savior. He remarked that the two of them didn't seem to see eye to eye. Livia wielded the coil gun and aimed to finish Big Fat Adam's bullet surgery, making a pun about safety glasses. She fired another projectile at one eye Adam, but he protected his face with his hand. The bullet bounced off his carbon skin, pushing his palm back slightly. He snarled for Saren to kill her. Saren unleashed a shockwave at Livia, forcing her to fall back behind the ruins of the bar counter. Frank had tossed Ryan against one of the atrium's walls. Hazmat Girl turned to blast Ryan, who decided to use his secret weapon by calling out Bianca. Saren froze in place. Ryan pleaded with her, extending a hand and promising they could make her human again since her boss wasn't working to find a cure. She unleashed a shockwave, but he dodged by leaping to the side. Saren asked if he was a telepath reading her brain. Ryan replied that she had air for neurons, so he couldn't read it, but insisted she must have seen the truth, that Adam was throwing her at the base's orbital command center, not at the elixir labs. Adam wiped the blood from his face and warned her not to listen and to power through. Livia confirmed this from her hiding spot, calling Ryan's name. Realizing her intention, Ryan rushed at Saren just as a chill went down his spine. Time skipped forward a few seconds. When it resumed, Ryan had slammed Saren to the ground. Holes appeared where Livia had hidden and where Hannafat Lecter's remaining eye should have been. The cannibal screamed in pain while Livia kept hitting his head with bullets. He had freed himself from Frank's grasp by returning to human form and then shifting back into the powerful animal. Ryan told Saren to look outside, assuring her they weren't there to kill anyone except Peswipiswai and her boss, whom he called asses, promising to cure the rest. Saren shouted for him to shut up, vibrating her gauntlets and aiming for Ryan's head. A shockwave hit the ceiling, causing concrete and pipes to fall in the middle of the room. Ryan urged Bianca to think wisely, reminding her she had been with her boss for years and that he had nothing to show for it. He asked if she thought she could return to a normal life as long as he was around. Saren snarled, managing to kick him off her. Both rose to their feet, with Hazmat Girl threatening to blast Ryan again. She asked why he would care. He argued that she didn't deserve to be trapped in that suit, unable to touch, smell, or taste, and that she had paid for the mistake of taking the elixirs ever since. Saren snarled back that he didn't know what it felt like to be her and demanded he fuck off from her memories. She pointed her gauntlets at the ground to increase the size of her jumps, soaring above the room until she almost reached the ceiling. She bombarded Ryan from above with repeated short blasts, but he dodged each one. He pleaded that he didn't want to hurt her, showing one of the guns he kept in his trench coat and claiming he could breach her suit with a bullet in his sleep. Ryan grabbed a weapon and shot her so fast she couldn't finish her sentence. The bullet grazed her mask near the point where it combined with the rest of the suit. When Saren landed, she didn't immediately attack. She touched her mask and gazed silently at Ryan. He said it was over for Adam but not for her, that she could could still survive. She replied that he didn't know her or Adam. Ryan insisted that he did, which was why Adam would die, but it wasn't too late for her. Saren hissed with disgust, asking if he was a white knight or some self-help shitstain and why she should trust him. Ryan tossed the fisty brothers and his gun to the ground. Saren flinched, perhaps expecting a trick, but he raised his arms and put himself at her mercy. He called her Bianca and told her she was his last chance at turning her life around, urging her not to waste it. She replied that she wouldn't waste the chance to wipe off his thick skull. Ryan bluffed that she might slay him, but he had a force she couldn't hope to defeat and that she had been on the losing side long enough. He asked if she would rather die as Saren or live as Bianca. Saren raised her vibrating gauntlets but hesitated. Her hands looked within an inch of opening fire, and her gas mask was as impenetrable as ever, yet she didn't attack. Ryan's words had planted doubt in her mind. Meanwhile, Livia ran out of bullets and tossed the coil gun aside. She shouted to Ryan that Adam had head trauma and that his power only protected his skin, not the organs beneath. She urged them to keep hitting his head to cause a concussion and internal bleeding. Big Fat Adam rasped angrily that Livia was Augustus' girl and tried to detect her by sound. When he did, he lunged at her with nightmarish speed, mouth open and hands raised. The blood flowing from his eyes made him look like a ghoul rising from the dead to devour the living. He threatened to send her back to her old man in pieces. Leaving Saren to mull over her doubts, Ryan activated his power, caught Livia in frozen time, and pulled her out of the way. Big Fat Adam's sharp teeth closed on nothing but air, and Lightning Butt's daughter instinctively grabbed Ryan by the arm. Ryan teased her that she should stop doing that or people would talk. She replied playfully that they could let people talk and that he could rescue her as many times as he liked. Frank tossed the wounded aside and moved toward Livia and Ryan, shouting that he was coming. Instead of running away, Livia faced the Titan and said 2 words, "Stop, Vladimir." For a moment, Ryan thought he had misheard, and so did Frank. The giant flinched as if stabbed in the heart. Livia continued that his true name was Vladimir Khabarov, not Frank. As PSY had said in a previous loop, Frank the Mad was no American. He was Russian. Frank snarled that this was communist propaganda and covered his head with his hand as if to block Livia's voice. Livia countered that his family farm was not in Arkansas but in Novgorod, and that his father was a Soviet who had perished choking on stolen caviar. Frank shouted lies and raised his fist to squash Ryan and Livia like bugs, but Ryan froze time to move out of the way, causing Frank's fist to crash through the floor. Saren chose that moment to blast the ground beneath Frank, causing the floor to collapse under his weight. The giant fell halfway into the hole, his torso sticking up as he tried unsuccessfully to raise himself. Ryan turned to see Big Fat Adam had recovered and was attempting to flank him, having detected their presence by listening. Ryan tried to back away, but Livia held his sleeve. Ryan tackled Adam before he could reach him. The two fought briefly, but Adam quickly grabbed Ryan's hands and opened his mouth to reveal a syringe filled with a swirling blue liquid, the same blue elixir the cannibal had tried to use on Ryan after destroying New Rome. Adam spat the elixir at Ryan's face. The blue liquid splattered on Ryan's fur, and though true elixirs could not bond to animals, this one detected the human beneath. Ryan's body shifted between forms as it absorbed the liquid. Adam pushed Ryan backward with cruel glee as Ryan held his breath. Hannafat Lecter gloated that he had caught one of them, and Livia replied calmly that he indeed had. Ryan noted her lack of concern and realized she must have seen this event in a vision and allowed it to happen. When Ryan settled back into his animal form, he understood. His body had fully absorbed the blue elixir, crushing the syringe shards beneath his feet. Instead of madness, he moved with focus, purpose, and strength. Saren whispered in shock and jealousy as Ryan took a step toward Adam. The cannibal heard him coming but was too shocked to react. Livia had predicted that she and her father could take 2 elixirs with no ill effect. Ryan's eyes shone with a blue hue, and he felt a moment of religious awe as a Gregorian song echoed in his mind and holy light seemed to shine into the bunker. For God existed, and he had fur. Ryan launched into the air with his right leg and arms extended, left knee folded, shouting the name of his attack in his cute, amusing voice, "Soaring Panda!" His feet struck Hannafat Lecter's head with such force that a loud crack echoed as the psycho flew backward and crashed into the ruins of the arcade. Ryan landed gracefully on his feet, striking a pose reminiscent of a Bruce Lee movie. Adam did not rise again. Frank, observing the scene in horror, attempted to free himself but was trapped further as his body absorbed the metal in the floor like quicksand. Saren pointed her vibrating hands at Frank's head and warned him not to make her blast him. Frank shouted that he must fight the communists' infiltrators, and Ryan answered that Frank himself was the communist. Frank then appeared like a zombie, scratching his chest as if to exorcise the Marxist, Leninist evil, but when he could not, he slammed his head against the floor and mentally shut down. His suppressed memories had resurfaced, flooding his brain as Livia had expected. His false patriotism shattered. The once proud giant became an immobile pile of scrap. Ryan observed him with a minute of respect, recalling how the loyal bodyguard had perished protecting presidents many times. Ryan asked Livia how she had known about Frank's past, and she replied that she had looked for a future where she won the fight. Saren lowered her gauntlets but remained on guard. Livia teased that Ryan's power was almost as busted as his best friend's, to which Ryan retorted. Livia then noted that their best friend should be done now. Ryan triumphantly declared he had caught one, sitting atop a crushed big fat Adam's stomach. The circle was complete. When Ryan had met Adam, he had been the disciple, now he was the master. The battle for the junkyard ended in a near flawless victory. The only loss was Ryan's car, wounded in action, though the chronoradio and key functions survived the land's attack, allowing repairs. The group gathered the psychos in the bunker's hangar, with Saren and Len moving the unconscious Meta gang members into bathyspheres for transport to underwater jails until Ryan could find a cure. Psyshock's thralls would also be kept there to receive medical attention and prevent the bunker's secret from spreading. They would be released once the base was destroyed. Len insisted on placing Big Fat Adam in a bubble as well, but unlike the others, he drowned to death inside, waking just long enough to understand he was about to die. Ryan noted that communists could never make good products, especially for those who attacked orphans under their care. Fortuna and Shroud entered the bunker arm in arm without masks. Fortuna looked giddy, while Shroud appeared resigned. Fortuna announced that Matthias was the Shroud. Ryan feigned surprise and asked if Matthias was her boyfriend. Fortuna squealed affirmatively, though Shroud seemed more resigned than anything else. Ryan remarked that he had known Matthias wasn't all that clear. Livia asked how it had happened. Shroud explained that the land had taken back physical form to fight at full power, and a rock had shattered his mask while he was holding Fortuna. Ryan commented on the bad luck. Fortuna said she had always wondered why Shroud was always there when she had a problem, and now understood he had been watching over her like a guardian angel. Shroud denied this, sounding more ashamed than usual. Fortuna told him he didn't need to be mean and that she knew he cared now, offering a foxy grin. A flash of flustered embarrassment crossed Ryan's face before he quickly masked it with a stoic expression. He explained that he had trapped the land inside a glass prison outside, while Gemini surrendered after realizing all was lost. Then he glanced at Saren and asked why she was still running around. Ryan replied that Saren had turned her coat the right way and would be very important later. Matthias squinted at the courier and the Augusti woman by his side, stating that after putting the Meta gang in custody, they would need to discuss the future of the place, and especially Ryan's future. Ryan asked if Matthias had told Sunshine about them, causing Livia to bristle. Shroudy Matt admitted he had not yet, unsure if his hypothesis was correct, but after seeing the place, he was certain and had enough questions for a lifetime. Ryan mocked that those questions would have to wait until after his girlfriends. Lucky Girl enthusiastically said she wanted to know everything, how long Ryan had been a hero, whether he was on a team, and if he had a sidekick. Matthias sighed as Fortuna dragged him away, though Ryan noticed Matthias did not resist as much as expected. The courier told Livia that Fortuna reminded him of moss growing on a tree. She was growing on Matthias, and he was starting to like it. Livia said Matthias would have to come clean to Fortuna or she would tell the truth for him, insisting Fortuna deserved that much. Ryan doubted Lucky Girl's power would work so hard to set them together if it wouldn't ultimately make Fortuna happy. Livia noticed Ryan's concerned expression and asked if something was wrong. Ryan listed the positives. The bunker was theirs with no strings attached. They had caught Adam before he could execute his plans. No one he cared about had died, and the panda had 2 powers, emphasizing his disbelief. Livia chuckled and said that was good news. Ryan admitted he was just expecting the other shoe to drop. Livia asked why it would, reminding him they had worked hard and learned from the previous disastrous loop. The word "we" was sweet to Ryan's ears, though much remained to be done. He no longer carried the world's weight alone, having people willing to back him up. Livia asked what came next. Ryan outlined his plans: infiltrate her family, brief Alchemo, Len, and Saren on the memory map front, find a way to deal with Dynamis permanently, contact Vulcan to recreate the Saturn armor, coordinate with the Carnival about the bunker, Narcinia, and the Bliss Factory, research a psycho cure, and probably plan a trip to Antarctica. Livia was surprised by the mention of Antarctica, but Ryan said it was a long story. She said they would discuss how to deal with the Carnival together and that he was their ace in the hole. She told him he would meet Jamie tonight to infiltrate her family from the bottom. Ryan confirmed he had put Jamie on a list but meant something else for the infiltration phase. Livia raised an eyebrow. Ryan hesitated before confessing he had been meaning to ask her something complicated and irreversible, but if it worked, it could could be significant. He left the sentence hanging, watching Livia's breathing shorten. She must have guessed his intentions but felt anxiety rather than serenity, uncertain if he had read the signals correctly. She shyly told him to ask. Ryan grabbed her by the waist and pulled her closer. Though she gasped in surprise, she did not resist, feeling light and fragile in his arms. He ignored the gazes of his teammates, focusing entirely on her blue eyes and the blush spreading on her cheeks. He asked if she was available tomorrow night. Livia immediately said no. Meanwhile, Ryan scratched Eugene Henry's back while watching Dr. Tyranno on his computer screen in the lab. The A-bomb lay on the desk next to the late Fat Adam's gravity cannon. Ryan questioned Tyranno about refusing unlimited funding, resources, and safety from the monster he kept bottled up in his lab when it inevitably broke out. Tyranno admitted surprise at how much Ryan had learned about his work, but said he was contractually bound to Dynamis for the next 200 years and could not leave the building without a heavy escort. Ryan expressed disbelief and asked if that was even legal. Tyranno said in New Rome it was. Ryan massaged his temples, frustrated, and urged Tyranno to think about the unstable product turning people into time bombs and what would happen when everyone had become a bloodstream clone. After a moment's silence, Tyranno answered that he would still have dinosaurs. Ryan found that thought more provocative than expected. Despite Tyranno's refusal to leave Dynamis HQ or sabotage the knockoff supply, Ryan did not give up on the Saurian genius. He tempted Tyranno by revealing access to a completely safe knockoff variant effective even on robots, 2 genomes with multiple powers and no side effects to study, a wealth of research on elixirs, and a lab capable of creating life from scratch. Ryan delivered the coup de grace by mentioning inhuman life. Tyranno's slitted eyes widened in shock, which Ryan interpreted as a form of arousal. To hook him further, Ryan forwarded a sample of his elixir research, including a bio-scan of Mongrel. Ryan explained they were working on a cure for the psycho condition and asked if Tyranno could sacrifice sometime despite his obligations to Dynamis. He suggested Tyranno might create a green knockoff granting his cold-blooded wish. Tyranno barely glanced at the data before raising his white flag and asking where to sign. Ryan scratched Eugene Henry behind the ears and said Tyranno must first give him access to a certain folder. Tyranno seemed embarrassed and called it a side project with early unpromising results but promised it would change the world. Ryan said he would keep an open mind as he received an email titled Monster Girl Project and opened the video file inside. The image of an abomination appeared, and the screams and moans startled Ryan so much he almost fell from his chair. His terrified cat leaped out of his lap toward the nearby bed. Ryan covered his mouth, unable to tell if his reaction was horror or awe at Tyranno's demented genius, acknowledging that even after 8 centuries of time travel, some things could still surprise him. He asked why. Tyranno explained it was a creative spur and insisted he could not do that to a reptile. Ryan asked why a mink had been chosen, then closed the video feed when he could no longer endure the abomination's screams. He inquired if the creature was still alive. Tyranno reassured him that it had died, but mentioned having a spare. Ryan fought the urge to vomit and ended the video call, knowing the image would haunt him for years. Even the most depraved Sonic the Hedgehog fans did not go as far as Dr. Scaly. The courier paused to catch his breath, then suddenly held it as 2 long ears rose from the side of the desk, a monster emerging from the depths of hell. Ryan feigned panic, forbidding the plushie not to act. The plushie looked between its maker and the A-bomb, then back again. Eugene Henry ignored them all, vanishing beneath the bedsheets with regal indifference. The plushie responded for the first time since the loop began, declaring it would always be Ryan's friend. It hastily pressed the A-bombs button with a loud click repeatedly, growing frustrated as nothing happened. Its eyes turned red, glaring angrily at Ryan. The courier grinned and explained the device was a prop. He had given the real one to Vulcan. He had bribed his favorite dwarf genius with so much technology that she hadn't asked him to sabotage Star Studios this time. Vulcan insisted Ryan become her assistant and refused to take no for an answer. Ryan was willing to help Vulcan, but only in short bursts. Although he could now interact with her without feeling stabbed in the gut, the shadow of his Jasmine remained ever present. He intended to use this loop to deal with the Bliss Factory and Narcinia, preferring to stay a contractor working for multiple branches of the Augustes organization. The plushie's eyes turned blue in disappointment, so Ryan tossed it the gravity cannon, telling it to aim for the heart if it wanted to work its way up the suicide chain, noting there was a chance to survive if it aimed for the head, based on his own experience. The eldritch horror examined the oversized weapon curiously. Ryan pleaded with it not to kill anyone else and left the fiend to its experiments, rising from his seat to move toward the door. Shroud awaited him in the next corridor, having repaired his glass mask, though Ryan wondered why he still bothered to hide his true face. Ryan told Shroud the plushie would not help sabotage the tomato juice factory because it feared its boss's wrath more than theirs. If the courier had been on a meta run, he might have changed that, but Ryan's focus was on the Augusti for now. One day had passed since the bunker raid.